Good afternoon. Well, hello, guys. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 89th IREPAS conference in this historic and beautiful city of Istanbul. On our Traders Committee meeting, we will continue to do the same format by discussing together with you the questions sent to us prior to this conference. We, of course, would like all of you to participate and address your questions, concerns as well. With this, let's start looking at the first question. Do you think the European Union will come up with any fresh quota regulations for others group? I think my friend really is best to address this question.
It's the second one. First one.
Okay.
So we don't believe that the European Union will come up with new fresh quota regulations because the so-called safeguard has to be finished and terminated by June next year anyhow. And for those remaining 10 months, it's very, very questionable that the EU will have the time and also the mood to change that and to make corrections. The EU is currently quite busy with other things, namely the carbon border adjustment mechanism, which will come later on, probably also as a particular topic here. So, to answer that question, in our findings, we don't believe that there will be any changes.
Yeah. Actually, this is so much related to Europe, so I will just leave it there. But I noticed that we have missed one question that was sent to us earlier, and I didn't see it there. And that question was, and I'll see if it is, no, I'll see it. The question was, what are the key drivers, restraints, opportunities, and challenges of European loan products market and how they are impact the market? This was the first question, and I didn't see it there. So I'm going to, again, ask Willy to address that, and I would like to hear your comments on it as well.
Yeah. The restraints are mainly coming from the higher interest rates and from the uncertainties on the governmental rules which have been implemented lately with new laws on heating and isolation and so on. So the market is extremely nervous, and that is following a period where, due to the invasion of Russia into Ukraine, we have seen a drastic increase of material costs, not only steel, but also cement and everything, foodstuff and so on. So the mood with the investors has gone down, and in line with the new rules and regulations. And just to give you an idea, the rules and regulations for housings have increased over the last years by almost 30%. So if you build an elevator and so on, it's probably this time 100% more cost than it was before. And this is lining up. So the investors are not really ready anymore to invest in real estate, in housings, because also our government wants to limit the rents for housing and buildings. So the investor is literally not really interested anymore investing in that. The other point is that with the lack of workers, we have another problem, that a lot of infrastructure projects, which are definitely to be done, are all delayed. And so that is a real challenge now for the government to bring that again into a balance and to adjust the laws and to make investments in real estate again. An investment which pays off in the end.
I thought with the influx of the immigrants that you have in Germany, you would not have a problem with workers.
That is a surprising thing with the influx of immigration. We have a strange rule, but I don't know whether this is a European rule, but obviously it is, or maybe it's even world rule. But you cannot let people who have not yet a status of being a recognized refugee.
Illegals.
You cannot work. You don't get a working permission.
I see.
And you also cannot force them to do, let's say, jobs which you would like to have them done, like cleaning the street or whatever. So this is against the rules. So we have a lot of them. Then they are sitting in their compounds. They are bored, and then they create other business rather than that. So that's also a big problem, and is certainly something which is not helping the case.
By the way, although it wasn't asked, but the same situation exists in the US as well. I think our interest rates went from 0.25 to 5.5, even higher, as the Mesgur was showing this morning. So with the interest rates going so fast, so high, our construction industry really is hurting because people cannot afford to buy the same house that they thought they're going to buy for the amount of money they want to spend, and for because of the high interest rates. Imagine in America, everybody thinks about the monthly payments. They don't think about the cost of it. They always look at the monthly payments on it. And the monthly payment cost on a 30-year loan went up to like double, triple, which really prohibits people buying homes. And that's why the construction industry is hurting. And this is affecting the whole economy. And unless they change the direction again and print more money for before the elections, I think we're going to have the same stagnation that Europe is facing. And pretty soon, I guess my friend will also discuss almost the same situation going on in China as well. Any comments on these guys? Please feel free to interrupt and raise your hand. And if you want to have comments or disagreements, we would welcome to hear that. All right. The next question on raw materials, and this is kind of a classic question. It's the current spread between the scrap price and the rebar price. I think we were looking at it yesterday, and approximately, I think the current spread is around $200, and the scrap is around, let's say, 370, and rebar 570. Then this is kind of normal around 200. And in Turkey, I understand that scrap is 377 and rebar is 570. So again, around that 200, give and take $20, it changes. But this is kind of a lower number because right after the invasion in Ukraine, we saw that thing jumped dramatically and it's come down. And I've seen it a lot lower before, but to me, it's a healthy number. What do you think?
Yep, I agree. It's more or less the same in the European production. So you have maybe 200 euros versus $200, but it's very much in the same corridor.
Yeah. The next question is, let me get to billet versus scrap for the electric arc furnaces and the electric arc furnace versus the blast furnace in terms of production cost. Who do you like for the next 6 months? That's a common question. I can tell you from looking at the China, the capacity utilization rate of electric arc furnace dipped like 49%, and whereas the capacity utilization in blast furnace is over 90%. You can see that in China, they like blast furnace. And in Turkey, we don't have a choice because majority of the production is electric arc furnace, same as the US?
It has two sides of a coin. To be an electric arc furnace producer, of course, with the intention to export to Europe, it would be certainly better to be an electric arc furnace producer, because with the new law coming up, the CBAM, yeah, we will see that, okay, for the next 2 years, it will be only for reporting reasons, but the mills all over the world will be obliged to reduce their carbon footprint as much as possible. So you have to declare in the import license what is the carbon footprint, what is the carbon or CO2 you are producing per metric ton of steel. And then after 2 years, there will be certainly come a so-called penalty for.
But what will they do to the blast furnace, existing in Europe? Are they going to grandfather them to the rules so that they don't have to obey with it? Because if they do, then they can't sell.
I think what it will be in practice is not 100% clear yet. First of all, they have this 2 years reporting phase where they want to understand how much CO2 is being, let's say, the average for rebars, for flat products, and so on and so forth. Of course, depending on the mill, whether it's a blast furnace or electric arc furnace. And then they will, of course, have a look on the European side, what is the average, yeah? And if you use more, probably you will be fined for the difference, or maybe you will be fined for the entire one, and the Europeans still have their free certificates, which they still have, but this will fade out in 34. Yeah, and in 2034, everything will be wiped out. Then the whole world literally is at the same situation. But probably in the meantime, from 2026 up to 2034, there will be this grace period where probably importing mills have to pay a duty for the CO2 by buying certificates or whatever, or just a fine. I think that is all still in motion.
I think this is a very controversial issue, and I really would like to hear your comments because it affects you the most. Because eventually, with this new decarbonization program, they're going to cut you out. I mean, the products that you bring from most of the countries that you are already accustomed to will be prohibited because of this thing. And most probably, and just guessing, and I'd like to hear your comments, that the electric arc furnace mills in Europe is not majority, is it? I don't know, but blast furnace mills will be grandfathered, and they will look at the whole country as general. They'll create some formula that will basically limit the rest of the world, obviously China. So I'd like to hear your comments, and I'd like to have participation on this one because this should really affect all of you traders. Anybody who wants to say something about this? I guess Europe can do whatever they want because we don't even say anything. We're ready to take it. All right. All right, this is a big subject, real estate sector in China and what's going on. And I think Hussein can give us a very good, although he did a great job this morning, I think he can give us some insights now as a summary on it.
Okay. So as you know, one of the biggest sector in China in economy is the real estate sector. And in China, traditionally, if someone wants to get married, so they should have a house. So this is the traditional, the way of Chinese, and our Chinese friends can explain more details.
Same in Turkey.
The same as in Turkey. So the man, if he wants to get married, they should have a house. So this is one of the reasons that actually in China, the real estate sector is demanded. So in China, we need to analyze the two parts, starting from 1990, which is the previous government decided to move the real estate sector and allowing the people to reach the credit from the bank easily and giving them some interest rate, attractive interest rate. And within a 10 years time, so China started booming up. And as we have seen 2-3 years ago, China was having the big import intention, and China was consuming everything from all over the world. Now, the new government, starting from 2012, they decided that the boom, the balloon in the real estate sector in China, it should stop and frozen. So what the Chinese government has done, they limited the credit to the construction companies in China. So that time that time also construction crisis started in China. And the biggest, as you know, in China, if the company is the biggest, they are the biggest also in the world, not only in China, most of the companies. So two biggest construction companies, they really start to face a serious problem. And in China, another problem that the consumer trust index came down. Now, even the people, after they've been hearing some announcement from the government about the real estate, they just would like to see the impact. So they've been not acting as per the declaration of the government anymore. So this current government also recently changed a new regulation, because in China, most of the states, the people are living in most of the state, they are only allowed to buy one house. Now that regulation changed. So people can buy the second house, and with the attractive interest rate, which is about 4.2%. And in that day, we start to see some increase in the real estates in China, but afterwards it's start to also cool down as well.
But we see also now another big company like the Country Garden actually is bankrupt, and this is after the Evergrande went bankrupt.
Exactly.
So I assume these are not government-related companies. Are they related to government, or they're just completely independent and private?
In China, as we all know, whatever the sectors are, the 60 to 70%, they all belong to the government.
So why do they let these companies fail?
Because the decision of the government, the buying house is only for living, not for investment, not for the speculation. So that's the reason they don't allow any company speculate about the real estates as well.
So those ghost cities are done by speculation only.
Exactly. And in China, if you want to buy a house in China, I mean, compared to, for example, same condition in Turkey, minimum $100,000 to $200,000 more expensive than in here. Same condition. So in China, the real estate is high.
And from what I understand, when you buy a house, you're only buying that house at the top. You don't own the land. The land still belongs to the government. Did you know that?
No idea.
Yeah. And the funny thing, it's how the government really controls everything. The land always belongs to the government, so you can build any building on it. But tomorrow, if they want to pass a road, they'll come and demolish you and give you another place somewhere else, whatever they decide, and you can say nothing about it as long as they give you the same square meters of a house in relatively the same area. You're done, and this helped a lot in their growth because they can build roads anywhere they want. And to build a road in Texas, you have to get permissions and pay royalties to so many different people and institutions, where in China, they make a decision, they can build the road. It's very different. Please.
Hello. Yes. In 2018-19, Turkey also had a problem with new start for constructions. The number of houses started construction was very low, but that caused a deficit in the houses. The number of houses empty went down, and after 2020-21, because the supply demand got vice versa. Now, in the last 2 years in Turkey, we cannot find houses. The house prices increased, maybe doubled in dollar terms. Do you expect something to happen in China, maybe after this bad times end in 1-2 years? Do you expect a boom in Chinese housing prices in 1-2 years? Thank you.
This is actually, when we look at the strategy of the government about the real estate, yes, this is what we clearly see. So the Chinese government is decided to make the real estate, the sector in China, more active. So most probably, yes, we will definitely see some demand on the real estate in China. Because reaching the credit, even when you want to buy the second house in China, you need to have a 20% of the cash advance in your hand. And the rest, 80%, is a 4.2% interest rate. And some of the bank is also giving the special discounts to follow the Chinese government decision.
I think there's enough people in China to eventually occupy those homes, but the problem is the cost, because they don't have the money to be able to purchase those homes. So it's really not like Turkey. Turkey's oversupply was a lot less than what Chinese oversupply is. Chinese oversupply is substantial, and to cover that is hard. And a lot of people lost their money because they put the deposits, close to sometimes up to 100%, but normally 20 to 50%. And when the companies go down, they lost the money. So those people who have worked all their lives and invested in a house, their money is gone. For them to buy again is not that easy anymore. Anyway, let's go to the next question, again related to China. Export production capacity utilization, import in 2023 compared to last year in China. Go ahead.
Actually, those are the figures that which we have already talked in the morning.
Yes.
And in 2023, in the beginning of 2023, we have seen another announcement from the Chinese government saying that this year production is not going to be more than 2022. This is actually what we have seen also last year as well. And the same declaration also applied to 2022 is not going to be more than 2021. But when we look at the production, we clearly see that there is no production cut in China. Plus, we've been seeing some increase. For example, compared to last year, daily, we've been seeing about 115,000 ton increase, which is referring about 3 million ton monthly. And the utilization rate in China is normally 85%. Now we've been seeing about 92%, 93% in 2023. So we've been seeing another 8% extra increase on the utilization rate in China. So there is no production cut. Regarding exports, yes, China has been exporting also more than last year. So when we see the figures that the China is exporting, for example, the flat and the long, flat is the 55%, referring the 55% of total Chinese export. And the long product is referring about 15% of the total Chinese export. And if you look at the number for the total export of China in this year, the average monthly China exported 7.3 million ton. And this monthly quantity, which was also done in 2022, it was 5.6 million ton. So we clearly see that there is an increase in 2023 for the export. It applies to, of course, to also flat export as well. This year, the average quantity of the flat export was 4.7 million ton, and that quantity in 2022, it was 3.5.
To give you a comparison, the amounts that he's talking about is equivalent to what total consumption in the US, what they export is similar to what we total usage of United States. So imagine how much they're exporting, because they start talking about per month. Pretty soon they're going to say every day we save this much because it looks a lot smaller.
Even for since we have already talked about the real estate, that the real estate, the volume of the business is $5.2 trillion, almost double of US
That's true.
economy.
Yeah.
Hussein, what are the main countries China is exporting to?
Rebar?
All the products
Okay.
in general.
I mean, in the beginning of this year, unfortunately, in 6th of February, we had an earthquake in Turkey. Then after earthquake, China started to receive sufficient demand from Turkey. And that time, the biggest market for China was Turkey. And even Turkish demand is affected the local market in China, also export price as well. Then afterwards, I can say after June, May, June, that demand started to come down. But usually China has been exporting South America. I mean, as you know, the Central America is not possible. South America and the Southeast Asia. Southeast Asia, like Vietnam, is the biggest market for China. And but China has been also losing for the power of the exports to Southeast Asia producers.
Like India and Vietnam.
I mean, as a Chinese trader and a government trader, we've been the other time that our price is not matching from China, and we've been buying from the Southeast Asia. Such aggressive prices sometimes.
I guess the next question is also in China. Do you see any change in scrap market in China?
Actually, last year, as we all know, there was a 2% of the import tax in China. Then the government has removed that taxes. Then China started to import scrap from mainly from Southeast Asia, and only 2 deep sea cargo is done from UK. And the total cargo that China imported is about 600,000 tons. And this year, we don't see any possibility for China to import. Let me give you the example. We have also stockyard in Japan as well. We are collecting scrap and selling to Southeast Asia, but even we are not able to sell it to our own country, which is China, because the price is about $30, $40 differences.
Well, also you have to note that you just mentioned this morning that the production capacities of the electric arc furnaces is down like by 50%. So when there's 50% reduction in the production capacity, obviously they're not going to use as much scrap. So that's the reason why the scrap prices will be highly affected.
But for scrap, what I believe that, as you know, China is only allowed to import shredded, bonus, and PNS cargo. And China is not allowed to import 80-20 HMS. So this is the main point. If any decision comes up from China allowing 80-20 scrap, then the scrap market, I believe strongly that is totally is going to change, because now the consumption in China is 14 to 15% is out of the total crude steel production is scrap, which is referring 150 million ton. But the government decided to increase the usage of the scrap to 30%. So we talk about another 150 million ton of consumption. So if government allows the 80-20 import allowance, the picture of our steel business totally is going to change.
That's very interesting. Again, on China production cut strategy, is it seriously considered in China?
Not really. We were expecting it this year, and especially 2-3 months ago, there was a demand for the hot roll coils, flat product, more than rebar. So the producer who produce both of the product they start to convert the material from the long to the flat because they were having some certain margin, $20 higher than long product. Then the hot roll coils production is increased and also export is increased as well. So if there is, which we don't think, we don't see the possibility, if there is even the cut on the production, it will definitely affect more hot roll coils production. And giving the example, this is what we talked also yesterday as well. Let's say if the long price is increased for $100, I strongly believe that the hot roll coil price is going to increase $150 minimum.
Well, at the end of the day, when you look at the whole thing, when China economy is slowed down and they have this huge capacity, and if they're not going to reduce their production, which they're saying they're not, they're going to produce similar to 2022 level, which is very high anyway. So that difference will have to go somewhere, and most probably it's going to come to your backyard, and it's going to make our life a lot tougher, and his life very good.
I mean, the industry, if they have excess quantity, I mean, we need to sell somewhere, surely. But I don't know. I think since I'm working in the Chinese company, I have an argument saying that China is not the biggest exporter actually.
But it will
Only
be.
5% of their total production, but the quantities we're talking about billion ton. But I see the threat Southeast Asia. Middle East, I'm talking about the production-wise coming up, new productions. For example, from Turkey, we used to sell regularly long product to Singapore and Hong Kong. Now our biggest supplier is Middle East producers. Our biggest suppliers now Southeast Asia producers.
Yeah, as much as you want to divert, China is going to be the biggest guy. Anyway, let's look at the next question. Yes, please. I couldn't hear you. I'm
The
sorry.
consumption of steel in China.
Okay.
The consumption of the steel in China, thinking the production is 1 billion ton, 950 million ton is consumed locally, if it's not more than that. Official figure is 950 million ton. But when I say official figure, we believe in that the consumption is more than that number locally. And the stock level, we have also a chance to see the stock level. It's not like Turkey, because in Turkey, when we talk about the stock level, we don't ask or we don't talk to each other. We cannot ask the producer, what is your stock level? But in China, we see the stock levels. There are two types of the stock levels in China. One social, they call it as a social stock, which means the warehouse belongs to the government. They've been able to see the stock level as well. And the ones is a stock in the factories. But right now it's not in the high level.
Any other questions on China? Okay, we're going to move to Turkey. And the question is, what is the latest situation regarding Turkey's billet imports? Will ex-Russia and ex-Donbass shipments continue, or will Turkish mills turn to scrap imports instead? My first comment would be, if the price is right, it probably will continue, but there's a serious regulations that's affecting Turkish exporters. Anyone who wants to export to Europe or the US really cannot use any Russian billets or even their slabs. So there is the limitation there, but I'd like to really talk about in Europe. How does that work in Europe?
Yeah, it works now that from 1st of October onwards, we have to provide, together with the customs clearance document, which is stating the origin of the finished product, we also have to put an attachment to the mill test certificate or to the documents in which the point of melting is being clearly defined. And you cannot say only it's not Russian, but you have to say it is coming from X, Y, that country. You have to probably name even the batch number, the heat number, so to identify that these billets and so on had been used coming from, let's say, from Algeria or from wherever, yeah, and had been then transformed into a reinforcing bar or a wire rod or a flat rolled product. And I think the only thing which is still allowed to import up to next October 24 is slabs to a certain amount into Europe.
MLAK, yeah?
It's I think it's for Machigalia,
And
because they are re-rolled then into domestic.
even in China, the Chinese traders or buyers, they are having the hesitation to make a business with the CIS cargo, Russian cargo. I mean, I'm not saying that there are not import or export to China. There are, especially for the billets and slab, but not many traders they are touching that transactions.
No.
I have a feeling it is only price related because China is not selling much to US or Europe anyway. So I mean, that's already been restricted. So I don't think they worry about the origin of that. But I can tell you in the US, it's not just declaration. You really have to verify, and they do send people to all the way to the mill and check all the details. So it's not a joke. It's serious declaration and checking. So you have to be verified. So it's really tough nowadays.
I mean, the Chinese concern is the payment transactions.
Okay,
So this is the issue.
that makes sense. That makes sense. All right. All right. Next question is: since Turkish long steel producers have few chances to sell to U.S. and Europe due to protectionist measures, which alternative markets are they targeting nowadays? Maybe you can. I mean, it's
I mean, unfortunately, we've been also seeing some restriction from Turkey to US, especially for the rebar. And we've been recently seeing that the sources for US for the rebar is changed. We mainly see the shipments from Algeria to Turkey.
But really, where do the Turks go? I guess probably there's enough audience, from Turkey here. Can you guys comment where the Turks can go? Probably not going today, but where they can go. Any comments, guys? You don't want to tell your secrets, huh? Oh, go ahead, please. All right.
What I can comment, but okay, sorry,
say,
sorry.
sorry, Başız.
Yemen.
Turkey, yes. Yemen is one of them. I think Israel, another one. Then Ethiopia, Djibouti area, some Africas, some, I don't know, South Americas are the markets. And also close by and small quantity buyers in Europe for some materials. Still we are able to sell. So this is how Turkey is coping. But of course, Turkish steel exports are down maybe 50%, maybe 40%, I don't know. So it's there's a big decrease already. And the rest is going to these destinations, as far as I know.
Of course, those countries they don't have enough market to take all the cargoes that the Turkey can produce because from what I read, the Turkish exports on, let's say, rebar went down 50%. So obviously they can't export. There's not enough markets for them to go. I mean, Africa, okay, fine, but then there's a limit to what they can buy. And Latin America, they have a serious competition coming from Brazil and Mexico.
Correct. Can I have one question about Europe's regime not to import any material made in Russia to Wilhelm? You said still Europe is accepting some Russian slabs. But my customers in Europe say any HRC made from Russian slabs are not accepted to me. I'm not buying any Russian material myself, or the mill I'm buying HRC is not buying, but I'm restricted. But you say European mills are still buying slab. How is this so? Thank you.
No, I didn't hear very well.
Can you repeat, because
Sure.
it was really very
Sorry. Europe is not accepting any Russian melted steel.
yeah.
But you said still slabs are imported, allowed to import to be imported to Europe.
Yeah.
My customers in Europe tell me in the first sentence they don't want any Russian melted slab or Russian HRC, nothing.
Yeah.
But still, I'm not buying. The mill I'm buying is not buying any Russian, but so I'm restricted. But European mills are still using slab. How come is this so?
It
Thank
is. We have in Europe, we have productions from Russian origin. Yeah, which like NLMK, which is in Belgium, which have also, I think they are also somehow linked with Machigalia, or Machigalia gets the slabs and they transform it then. So something is obviously still possible to import on slabs. On billets, I was told nobody is importing any billets anymore, unless, yeah, and I think NLMK is also slabs what they are importing into Belgium, in Quebec or whatever. So, of course, if you are the the owner, you import your own slabs if you can, and as long as Europe allows that. But for the rest, it's now forbidden. And in the first place, in the first sanction, it was only that the finished material was not allowed to be imported, like hot rolled coil, like rebars, wire rod. But now they even go on the billets, yeah, on the origin of the material or the melting point of the material.
Do you think it's fair to restrict all Turks not to use any Russian, but Europeans to continue using Russian slabs? Thank you.
I mean, one of the problem that we've been facing in Turkey, I mean, the Turkish producer, because I clearly remember in 2010, we made a one analyze. Then that time, as you will remember, that the Turkey was the biggest rebar exporter in the world and handling 30% of global rebar transactions. And that time, although Turkey was the biggest exporter of the rebar, Turkey was not the biggest producer in the world. But having the excess quantity of rebar was given us some signals saying that in the future, the Turkey will face a problem with the rebar. But this is unfortunately, this is what we've been facing now.
Yeah, what I can comment on top of this question is, for example, Turkey still has ability to sell to Europe. I mean, they have a quota. They can do 130,000 tons per quarter, which is not really that bad. The point is that from this quota, which is ending now, end of September, so far only 10% have been consumed. So that means even price-wise, today they cannot compete in those markets where they were traditional players. So that is a big problem for the.
Their electricity cost is a lot higher, and labor is cheap, but their input is a lot higher. Then that's why they cannot compete with Europe right now. Let me go to the next question. It's also similar to that. What is the impact of war in Ukraine and Turkish long steel industry in terms of raw material supplies, costs, export opportunities, and other issues? I mean, Turkey imported billets from Ukraine, which they cannot now. Shipping in the Black Sea is a major problem for Turkey because the costs on Black Sea shipments went high. There's congestions in certain ports that they used to ship to, like in Romania, and so this whole impact on war impact on Turkey is serious. So it's I think just like Uğur Dalbeler was saying this morning, this did negatively affect Turkey seriously, and it's going to continue to affect Turkey negatively for as long as the war continues. But I'd like to hear your comments on it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's what we all know is that Russian billets was certainly a big factor for Turkish mills, and so same with Ukrainian billets. So this is not existing anymore. So yeah, the problems are piling up in Turkey on each and every step.
I mean, from far, it looks like Turkey is benefiting. Actually, no, maybe in the very beginning it did because they could buy and sell, but not anymore. It's right now it's going against Turkey, actually.
And Russia and Ukraine were replaced by, I'm talking about the billets exports, by Southeast Asia and also by Middle East as well. So the Middle East, the country that we used to sell billets, now the Turkey is buying billets from Middle East.
The last question on Turkey is what is the latest situation regarding the long-awaited reconstruction works in Turkey's earthquake-hit region? To what extent will the launching of rebuilding work to be impacted by the U-turn in monetary policy in Turkey with its high interest rates? I mean, look, I think Turkey did an incredibly good job in putting up, building, and planning to build 650,000 homes in the earthquake-affected area. And new construction, about 180,000 homes, have already started and claimed to be, given the keys or delivered to the owners in October. So there's a great rebuilding going on, and I think this is serious. But I want to add something else, which is not asked there. After Turkish earthquake, we had the earthquake in Morocco, and then we had this huge dam failure in Libya. So I expect that there will be a lot of rebuilding in Libya and Morocco as well. So it's a very unfortunate situation, but there is an opportunity for the Turkish mills to sell to those countries, going forward, is what I think. Any comments, gentlemen? Okay. Okay, these are some general questions. Are the Russian billet and longs producers likely to play a role in meeting Turkey's earthquake-hit region requirement? I don't really think so, but it can happen. I mean, in the beginning, the re-rollers in Turkey do buy their billets from other sources, and they used to traditionally buy from Ukraine and Russia. And if they're sending their billet rebar to this area, yes, they are. What do you think?
I agree, but I mean, as we talked yesterday as well, and the end of the day, as long as the price attractive, I don't think so is a problem to sourcing the material from Russia. And another possibility that it may happen, such a big area reconstructed, it might reconstructed by some foreign investors. So that time, that foreign investor, if they put some condition in their contract in the construction, so that material also can be sourced. All depends on that investor's origin.
Yeah. All right. Let's go to the next question. Okay. Export from Asian countries to markets like Turkey and Europe is increasing. How is the recent situation and expectations? Maybe you can address that.
Since, as we just talked, Russia and Ukraine were out, and Russia and Ukraine was the biggest raw material supplier to Turkey. As you know, billets, slab, coal, and also scrap as well. So it's replaced mainly for the raw material from Asian countries. So mainly for the Malaysia. As you know, the Malaysia is having a free trade agreement with Turkey, and the buyer here, when they import the material from Malaysia, and the buyer, they don't need to pay tax for the billets. The tax is in Turkey 22.5%.
For
And-
Malaysia or for the rest of the country?
For the rest of the country, unless you export that material. If you export that raw material as a rebar, of course, as you know, you don't need to pay. But even for the cargo that you've been getting from Malaysia, you don't need to export. You can sell it to the local market without paying the tax. And we've been also seeing that some export is done from Southeast Asia countries to Turkey, also for the flat product and also wire rod as well.
Okay. Which countries are the major influencers nowadays with regard to the price trends in the global steel market? I guess you can start saying China is number one, but just like Hussein is saying, the Asian, South Asian countries like Malaysia, Vietnam are going to be major players. And today I just learned that Iran has huge capacity as well. You were mentioning 50 million ton coming from Iran as well. So yes, it's the world is changing, and these countries used to be net importer. I remember in 80s the Turks used to sell to Singapore and Far East, megatons. And then, of course, the things have changed.
I mean, it looks like since we've been seeing some investment in the countries, given the example of Turkey, for example, there was the only 1 month when I used to work at the factory in Turkey. There was the 1 month that we used to export only 800,000 ton rebar to Dubai within a 1 month as Turkey. Then Dubai market disappeared for Turkey. Saudi Arabia, we used to sell 1 million ton to Saudi Arabia, it's disappeared. The reason is, as we all know, local production is coming up. So new investment is coming up. So in the end of 10, 15 years time, we will be seeing our business more localized. But we may not see much, some foreign transactions, export transactions. Import always can be available, but the business is getting for localized. This is what we are seeing.
Yeah, fully agree. Let's if we take the CBAM as another example, yeah, with all these carbon restrictions and yeah, the
It's one way or
businesses.
the other. I mean, Trump started with this 232 for the protection of United States from invasion of the other countries. And then obviously it went up to Europe, and Europe done the same measures. And now today I understand that Mexico just announced their similar to Section 232, 25% duty on most of the countries except for what they really trade with max, which is the U.S. and Canada, and I was surprised that Brazil was also 25% duty. So I know for a fact that the Turks are selling heavily into Mexico as well, and it looks like that market is going to disappear. So Mexico did that, but for the longest time, Mexico had like 10% duty for anyone coming from the other than Mercosur countries, but now they just went big and put 25%, and it's serious because it's the direction the world is going is really not working for us traders. Because we're going to have to just become locals, and if you're going to be a local trader, the domestic mills don't need you. They can sell direct. So looks like it's the news is not good, and hopefully some things will change eventually in the market, but right now the direction is really local trade and the domestic trade. I guess the next question is what do you foresee about Saudi Arabia's public investment fund signing a share purchase agreement to acquire Hadid and its possible outcomes in the steel industry? You want to comment?
Well, honestly, only what Mr. Taylor said yesterday in the preparation meeting, that obviously the background for this acquisition should be to have a secured producer for this NEOM project, which is now under planning and probably will be realized. And so I wasn't aware about that before, but Mr. Taylor informed us yesterday, so I can just repeat what he contributed to that question. I think he's not here in the audience.
No.
So any further question on that? I can only say it's a huge project which consumes 1 million ton or whatever, if not more, and so
Much more.
much more. Yeah, much more.
They were saying million ton
Monthly, 1 million ton monthly. So it must be a mega project, but I haven't seen the details so far.
Does anyone in the audience know about this project?
NEOM?
Please. Yeah.
Yes, it's working now, I think. It's actually a combination of different projects
A
under
little
the
bit
NEOM.
louder, please.
Yeah, it's a combination of different projects under the same umbrella. So there is the line project, which is 170 kilometers long, obviously horizontal, 500 meters high horizontal building, which is one of the projects. And then there are other two, which is one of them is Troyana, which is like a Winter Olympic Park up on the northwest of Saudi, between Jordan and Saudi Arabia. And then the other one is the Oxagon, which is kind of a logistics center. And then now they added up the fourth one, which is Sindala, which is like a tourist resort complex on the Red Sea development. It's an all combination of these projects. And this is all kind of governed under PIF and one of the key projects run in the region. So we are kind of helping them for the specifications of materials and
How real it is, because it sounds almost like a dream works to me. I mean, because you're going to spend all that money, put all that steel and build a city that's like a tunnel, and which is unheard of in our social life up until now. Actually, it's unheard of in our history of urbanization. So it's new way of urbanization, unheard of before. So how real is it? Because I was wondering if it's something that the certain people convince them to do that, so that the world will use all their steel and then all their money. What do you think?
Well, I had exactly the same sort of feeling before I saw the site. I mean, I am one of those, maybe a few here in the room, seeing the site and also their design office at one of these projects, like the line project. I have seen hundreds of engineers working on the design stage on the site, not just in Tabuk, but also in London and some other centers as well, where these really top of the notch of these designing community are coming together and working on these massive projects. Yes, they are iconic. That's why they have prioritized sections. And they made a change in, especially the line one. Obviously, you can even see it from space, 170 kilometers long, 500-meter high project. That's why they have prioritized the marina section, which will enable them to get it commercialized right away, which is going to happen as top priority as far as I'm aware, which means it is going to work in line with the cruise lines, where there's going to be big cruise ships coming in and out into the NEOM site and the line site. And then I think we are all going to wait and see how realistic the rest of the other parts of the projects will going to happen. So it's a waiting game. And PIF is very, very keen. I can see it's happening. So I have no reason why I shouldn't believe, but maybe not the entire project itself, but probably partially. Troyana is going to work because there is a Winter Olympic link with it. And there are commitments from the Saudi government, as far as I'm aware, to make that project happen. So there's no chance that this is not going to happen for some of them. And some of them are, I think, exactly what you mentioned. We will all have to wait and see how much of that is becoming a reality. We will experience together.
Well, I wish them all the luck for the sake of the world, because that will consume some of the steel that we cannot sell. So it will be perfect.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next question is, BRIC countries have recently invited Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Ethiopia, Iran, and Egypt to join. What might be the possible outcome of this block expansion of the steel aspect? I think it's going to help China sell a lot more to these countries and open up their borders. What do you think?
It's possible, but when we look at the countries, I mean, except Saudi Arabia, with the project, because in Saudi Arabia, the project, one of the information that we have, that project is going to end up till 2045. So I'm sure the projects, the producers, they will really enjoy the business with Saudi Arabia in coming years. But when we look at the other countries in here, for example, UAE is already self-satisfied with the production. And Ethiopia is the, I can say, back garden of Turkey for the especially long product. Then Iran, I don't think so. China, I mean, we cannot make a business with Iran as a Chinese company. Then Egypt also is doubling their quantity within 3 years.
But when they join BRIC, that doesn't necessarily mean only rebar or steel. Then there's way so many other products that they can sell to these countries. I think that's more what China has in mind.
It's quite possible. Quite possible.
I understand that it's more a political union rather than a real trade union.
Okay, that's true too. Okay. How do you see the current situation regarding the freight and shipping costs? My opinion is the shipping pricing have normalized, and I'm glad to see that what we saw after the pandemic, that the prices jumped like crazy, and then we had huge costs in carrying the cargo, discharging the cargo. It was incredible. So that, I think, have subsided. So now we have kind of normalized shipping costs, and it's all doable for most of us. Of course, now that the oil prices start going up, that may be the bunker pricing, affecting the bunker pricing, which may affect the shipping prices again. But I think it's fine. What do you think?
Yeah, in most of the regions, the prices for logistic came back to normal, but not, let's say, before pandemic prices,
Yes.
before boom prices. In some regions, especially from the Middle East and also from Asia, we still see relatively high freight costs. Of course, from China, it reduced a lot compared to some time ago when we had $120, $130, $150. You are now back to, again, $50, $60 or something like that. But still, if you come from the Middle East, you still have, funny enough, costs of $60. So it's closer by, but it's more expensive because probably there is not that much of return freight.
I've been doing trading for the last 41 years. So I can tell you this, in the early days, I used to pay 25, maybe sometimes $30 for shipment from Turkey all the way to the United States, and discharge it for 10, sometimes $12 per ton. Now it went up like that for years, and it went up to like $25. And I thought, well, things are going, in the wrong direction. And then in 2003, I remember the shipping prices went to 80s, $80, 75, $80. And I got so upset. I said, oh, at that price, we can bring containers in. So up until that time, carrying steel in container was a joke. Nobody could even do it because it didn't matter, because container pricing was like $80, $90, where we could carry the cargo in $25, $30, $35. So it just didn't make sense. And I mobilized the people I frankly started with Turkey because they're more flexible, and how to load a container steel, how to discharge a container, start taking pictures, videos, and take it to America and show it to my stevedores how to unload from a container and how to load to a container. And it took me 2, 3 months training, and both sides understood. And we started the container shipments of steel. So trust me, before it was not, it was unheard of. And for a while after, I carried steel in containers, and today I still carry containers because then I can go to the West Coast. I can go to the places that, West Canada with containers without thinking twice, because in the past I could not pass, in anything past the U.S. Gulf or on the other side of the Panama. So container prices became, a viable thing for us, whereas the bulk prices were close, $60, $70 versus $80. So it was doable. And then of course it went up to $200, 300 container price I'm talking about, $300 during pandemic. I heard all kinds of numbers. And then actually we went back to bulk. Now we're doing more bulk than we were doing containers, except for destinations that does not make sense anymore. So luckily, I think we're back to normalizing in that industry.
No,
Any other comments?
no.
Okay. The last question is, what is your forecast and outlook about construction market demand and supply balances in each and major of the world for the next 3 to 6 months? I can comment that in Latin America, I think it's good. In Central America, it's average. Europe, my friend can tell.
Yeah, Europe is really in bad shape, and the so-called engine of Europe, named Germany, has some problems, energy problems, and yeah, we are definitely right now in a kind of recession. I told you before that we have really problems with building applications, with high mortgage rates, with lack of workers, regulations and rules. So we are about 20% down in construction compared to last year. The trend is probably going to get worse in next year, at least for the first half. The prediction is everything but good. We see already that most of the European producers are down with their production utilization to about 65%, some even 50%. And we also see that the vendors are starting to get really, really nervous because they cannot get good quality priced orders anymore. Yeah, they have even no chance, what they had in the past, at least some of them, to import and to get a better price in average. So import prices right now into Germany is almost impossible. The prices are higher than the domestic. We see that vendors are so much keen to get an order and to continue production, because you cannot simply stop and you cannot simply send your subcontractors home, because they will never come back again. So you have to decide yourself whether we want to stay in that business or not. But they are really ready to lose money now just to keep in business and to continue hoping that this is going to change. And just to give you an idea, the average sales price today, cut and bend in Germany, is probably today 630. 630 euros cut and bend delivered, and these people have to buy the rebars today at probably 600 euros. So the normal gap of 150, 130 euros,
Not enough.
you can forget. But the funny thing is, if you go just across the channel to UK, the prices over there are minimum 100 euros higher for cut and bend. So they have a different setup. They have obviously a different playing field. But this is right now in most of Europe that the also in France and in Belgium,
I heard
everywhere.
this morning that UK is giving big subsidy to Tata.
Yeah, 500 million.
Why?
Don't ask me.
Any comments on that one? Because that's crazy. I mean, and really they've been preaching us about this government intervention.
I mean, ThyssenKrupp got subsidies of 2 billion from Germany for the transformation into green steel, into the new technology of direct reduction. Yeah.
Yeah, but if the Turkish mill gets that, then they get slapped.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's unfortunately
Yeah, that's a tragedy, and
the strong governance. I think the Middle East, you know, the of course this big project in Saudi Arabia is going to create a huge market for that. But Middle East is a major exporter now. We're, believe it or not, we're buying from Dubai into Canada, into US regularly. So it's Middle East market is still a decent growing and market. And in Africa, I think really what I mentioned earlier, the catastrophe that we had unfortunately in Libya and in Morocco is going to keep them busy for a while. And there's not a whole lot of production except for Algeria, which dumps most their production into US anyway. And so, but in Africa, there is a market. I think an African market is growing and will grow for a long time.
For Europe, I think we really need a consolidation of the production and also downstream, namely cut and bend. There are way too many cut and benders around, and the demand will not be as it was before, even though we have lots of things to do. But I think for the coming
in a free
years,
market, it corrects itself. You really don't need any regulation for it.
No.
Markets correct itself. You know, let them just take care of their own. You know, eventually it will correct itself. Any other comments, gentlemen? Are there any other questions that you want to ask that has not been asked and addressed before? Please.
Can you hear me? Okay. Thank you very much for your answers.
Louder.
Yeah, thank you very much for your answers. I have a question. My apologies, I may have missed probably first 10, 15 minutes, but this is more about the reconstruction demand. So we've heard a lot.
Sorry, I can't hear you at all.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
No.
Better. Okay, thank you. My question relates more to reconstruction demands, maybe more about the figures itself. So we heard some numbers earlier this year that the local demand will probably be like around like 4 million tons of rebar. How can you assess it forwards for the next year, for instance, or probably till the end of this year? How much steel, longs products, maybe more, Turkish domestic market will require? And will reconstruction demand be able to push the market forward still? Because there have been lots of discussions about that, but as far as we see, the market is quite slow to say. So this is my question.
If I understood it right, the Turkish, consumption, Turkish demand for steel is there, but the problem is the financing of it. The government recently decided to really squeeze the industry and the financing of new construction and spending, which is going to affect all over the country. So there's the new, what I see is the only new construction in Turkey is the ones that is basically financed by the government and really given the permission by the government. But the free construction is very tough because people don't have the money to buy anymore because the price is too high. But they have the capacity, so they really have to. I think Turkey has to export, and what we see now is like they're like 50%, and I think some mills in Turkey will have to just sit idle for a while.
But how do you what do you think about the percentages? How much has been already constructed, and how much the government will need to
in the-
construct in future?
I think in the earthquake zone, from what I see, is maybe 20, 30% already is under construction, but there's a lot more to go. And but the initial construction is the one that is financed by the government, and let's say it's a show, but then the rest has to be built by private industry. And I don't think the private industry has as much money. So maybe the government will still do some for the infrastructure there because the infrastructure is destroyed as well. But after that, it has to be the individuals rebuilding. And last thing, if it was, let's say, the same thing happened in the US, 90% of the buildings are insured. So the insurance companies will, put up the bill. But in Turkey, I don't know what percent, but I think it's very small percentage of the homes have the insurance. So when they lose their house, they lose their investment. So for them to rebuild again, very hard, very, very hard.
But my view then, like if not the government who can do the reconstruction, it will not be financed by the private companies. So the government probably needs to do the reconstruction to help people to get new houses. Because if it's not the government, then we'll probably not see the demand.
True, true, you're right.
Thank you very much.
Thank
That's
you.
very interesting.
Any other comments, gentlemen? Ladies and gentlemen. Okay, I guess that will conclude our meeting today. Thank you very much for your participation, and look forward to see you. Our next meeting will be in Berlin, so hope to see you in Berlin next time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.